I used to laugh when people talked about ghosts. Now, I can't even look at a shadow without my hands shaking. I work as a guard in the abandoned tunnels under this city. They're old maintenance shafts, long forgotten by the public, carved through the rock decades ago when the underground lines were being built. Most people don't even know they exist. Those who do, well, they whisper things. You've probably heard one or two. The kind of urban legends you brush off. Don't. If I could reach through this and grab you by the collar, I'd make you promise to listen, because something is down there and it hasn't stopped walking. You want to know why I took the job? Because it paid better than anything else around here. Nobody wants to babysit rotting concrete tunnels at night. Too damp, too dark, too silent. It breaks most men within a week. But I needed the money, and I thought, hell, it's just sitting with a flashlight, right? How wrong I was. The air down there is different. Heavy, wet, like the walls are sweating around you. You can hear every drip, every groan of old pipes, every distant shuffle that could be a rat or something else. I used to tell myself it was rats. I still try to, but I know better now. On my first shift, the supervisor shoved a laminated sheet into my hands. "Read the rules," he said. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. The list wasn't long, but each line felt like a warning dressed up as procedure. Rule 1. Keep the lamps lit. Never let the dark settle completely. Rule 2. If you hear footsteps that don't match your own, stop moving. Wait. They'll pass. Rule 3. If you see him, don't run. Don't speak. Don't even breathe loud. Just wait until he goes by. Rule 4. Never follow the knight's horn. A knight, that word stuck with me. It sounded ridiculous at the time. A knight? Underground? What were they trying to scare me with? Some medieval ghost? But the rules were printed, official. Someone thought them necessary. And I'd learn soon enough that rules in the tunnels aren't suggestions. The tunnels themselves stretch like a labyrinth. Rusted ladders, dripping ceilings, forgotten machinery that hasn't worked in 50 years. The walls hum sometimes, like there's still current running through them, but no one's wired down there anymore. My flashlight only shows about 10 feet in front of me. The beam swallowed by thick dark. I swear the shadows move when I'm not watching. The first night passed with nothing more than my nerves chewing me alive. I kept repeating the rules in my head, like a prayer. Lamps lit. Don't follow sounds. Don't run if you see him. Him. I didn't know then how real that warning was. It was on the second night that I heard it. I was posted near one of the central shafts, the kind that drops so far you can't see the bottom. Only a faint draft rising like the tunnel itself is breathing. I leaned against the railing, listening to the drip of water echo into the abyss. That's when I caught it. Metal striking stone, faint, rhythmic, clang, clang, clang. Footsteps, not shoes, armor. At first, I laughed under my breath. Some idiot must have been messing around deeper in, maybe another guard. But then the sound grew louder, closer, deliberate. It didn't echo like normal footsteps. It was heavy, dragging, each step grinding against the stone. And worse, it didn't stop when I froze. Rule 2 said they'd pass. These didn't. They drew nearer, like whoever or whatever it was knew exactly where I was standing. I backed away from the railing, my hand shaking so badly the flashlight jittered across the walls. The beam caught something, just for a second. A glint, like polished bone or pale metal. gone the moment I blinked. I wanted to call it in, but my radio hissed with static. No voice on the other end, just a low hum, almost like a horn stretched too far, buried beneath the interference. I didn't realize until later how wrong it was to hear that sound at all. That night, I barely made it back to the surface. I told myself I'd imagined it, that the tunnels were playing tricks on me. But my boots had tracked wet prints up the service stairs, even though the ground where I'd been standing was dry. And on the toe of my left boot, just a faint smear of something silver, like ash. I didn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard the steps again, that dragging armored tread. By the third night, I knew I wasn't alone down there. I knew the stories weren't just stories. The Hollow Knight, whatever he is, still walks. And I think he's looking for someone. Because when I shined my light into the black that third night, something shined back. 2 faint hollows where eyes should be, empty, waiting, fixed on me. And I swear, he raised his head. I told myself it wasn't real. That's the only way I made it through the next hour. I stood there in that tunnel, every nerve in my body screaming to bolt, to run, to throw myself up the service stairs and never look back. But Rule 3 clawed through my skull. Don't run. Don't speak. Don't even breathe loud. So I didn't. I stood frozen, heart hammering against my ribs, so hard it hurt. My breath caught halfway up my throat. The light trembled in my hands, the beam shaking. Across dripping stone and broken pipes, and those 2 hollow pits stayed there, steady, unblinking, like a mask, or worse, like a face with nothing behind it. And then he tilted his head. The sound it made, I'll never forget it. A faint scrape, like rust peeling off a hinge, echoing through the narrow tunnel. I don't remember lowering my light, but suddenly the beam was pointed at the ground, and when I dared to look back up, the eyes were gone. The passage stretched on, empty, black as ink. That was my first close call. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Another guard? They'd laugh in my face or tell me to quit. But I couldn't quit. I needed the money. And besides, some sick part of me wanted to know more. Every shift after that, I started hearing things. At first, it was just the normal tunnel sounds, water dripping, air whistling through cracks. But soon, I noticed patterns. A steady 3-beat rhythm against the stone, always faint, always just behind me. A low breath carried on the draft, too deep to be human. And once I swear I heard words. It came from one of the sealed shafts, the kind welded shut with thick plates of steel decades ago. I was passing it on patrol when I froze. A whisper, right against the crack of the door, so faint it barely touched my ear. A man's voice, hollow and deliberate. Wait. I stumbled back, my flashlight swinging wildly, catching the rusted bolts, the dripping ceiling, the slick black walls. Nothing else. The whisper didn't come again, but I could still feel it, like someone had leaned close enough that their breath should have brushed my neck. Tell me, if it had been you, would you have leaned in, put your ear to that steel door, tried to listen closer? I didn't. God help me, I wanted to. But my legs carried me away, fast as I dared, without breaking Rule 3. I didn't even realize I was whispering until I hit the junction. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. By the end of that week, I wasn't laughing anymore. The tunnels, started to change. I know how that sounds. Stone doesn't just move on its own. But listen. Corners I swore had led back to the stairs opened into long stretches I'd never seen before. Old lamps flickered when I passed, buzzing faintly, even though none of them were supposed to be powered. I'd set down my lunch on a rusted barrel, turn, and when I looked back, the sandwich would be gone, plastic wrap and all. Rats, I thought. But rats don't leave neat slices through bread, and every night I felt it stronger, the sense that I was being followed. One shift, maybe my 6th or 7th, I heard the horn. Not the faint hum in the radio like before. This was clearer, stronger. It rolled down the tunnels like a foghorn dragged underwater. Long, low, aching. My skin crawled instantly because I knew Rule 4. Never follow the night's horn. But the thing is, the sound doesn't give you a choice. It pulls at you. I can't explain it properly. Imagine someone plucking a string tied deep inside your chest, vibrating through your ribs, pulling you in whatever direction they want. That's what it felt like. My legs moved without me, steps dragging toward the sound. I fought it, dug my nails into the wall until rust broke under them. Forced myself to stop at a fork, sweat stinging my eyes. The horn sounded again, closer, and my stomach turned to ice. Because I realized what it was doing. It wasn't just calling me. It was leading me away from the lit path, deeper into the sections where the lamps had long since died. I nearly broke the first rule. My flashlight beam wavered, guttered as the batteries drained. I yanked them out with trembling fingers and slammed in a fresh pair, whispering like a lunatic, "Keep the lamps lit. Keep the lamps lit." That saved me, because when the horn bellowed again, it was so close that the air itself shuddered. I dropped to my knees, my hands over my ears, but the light stayed on. And in that light, barely at the edge of the beam, I saw him, tall, impossibly tall, armor dull and corroded, pieces hanging as if fused to bone instead of metal. His head was bowed, a horn-shaped crest curving from his skull, and where his face should have been, nothing. Just a black void sucking the light inward like smoke. He walked slowly, dragging a blade that looked older than the tunnels themselves. Sparks danced as it scraped the stone, and me? I pressed myself into the wall, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. He didn't look my way. He just passed, each step echoing like a funeral drum. I don't know how long I stayed like that, crouched in filth, choking on my breath. When I finally lifted my head, the passage was empty again. I thought I'd imagined it, a hallucination brought on by the dark. But when I finally forced myself to stand, my flashlight caught something. Carved into the wall, fresh scratches, deep gouges where his blade had dragged. I reached out. The stone was warm, and that was the first time I truly believed the Hollow Knight was real. But believing doesn't help you, not when he starts noticing you back. You ever feel someone staring at you when you're alone? That sudden heat on the back of your neck, the hairs lifting, the pulse hammering on your ears? That's what the tunnels became for me, constant, like the stone itself had grown eyes. I couldn't eat before my shifts anymore, couldn't sleep after them. I'd sit in my kitchen, lights on, trying to scrub the sound of dragging steel out of my skull. Coffee went cold in my hands. The sun would rise, and I'd realize I hadn't moved in hours. And every night, I went back down there. It wasn't bravery. Don't think that. It was desperation. The pay was good enough that if I could last a few more weeks, maybe I'd crawl out of debt. Maybe I'd start over. But the money didn't feel real anymore. Down there, nothing did. The supervisor never asked questions. He just handed me the logbook at the start of each shift. Eyes bloodshot, face gray. I tried once, just once, to bring up what I'd seen. "Do you ever hear it?" I asked. The horn?" His hand froze over the paperwork. He looked at me then, really looked, like measuring whether I'd last another night. Then he closed the book and shoved it back at me. "Follow the rules," he muttered. "That's all that matters." That was the end of that conversation. The following night, I learned how bad things could get when you slip. It was past 2 a.m, the deadest part of the shift. I was making rounds near the service pumps when my flashlight flickered. A warning tremor went through me. I tapped it, shook it, begged under my breath. The beam steadied, dim but alive. Then I heard the steps. Not behind me this time, ahead. Slow, deliberate, heavy. I froze, the rules screaming in my mind. Don't move. Don't breathe. Wait. The steps grew louder, closer. I pressed myself flat to the wall, forcing my lungs to sip air through the tightest gap in my lips. Shadows quivered in the half-light, stretching, bending. And then I sneezed. Just once. Sharp, helpless. My chest snapped forward with it, the sound bouncing like a gunshot through the tunnel. The steps stopped. My blood iced. Every nerve told me to run, to bolt into the dark. But my legs locked solid. A silence thicker than concrete pressed in. Then came the scrape, the blade dragging forward again, each inch of it screaming along the stone. I tilted the flashlight down by instinct, and in that circle of light, I saw it. A hand. Armored, skeletal, clawed. Resting against the floor, not 5 feet from me. I don't remember pulling the beam up, but when I did, I caught the chest plate. Tall, cracked, ancient. The horned helm lowering slowly, the void face tilting toward me. I should be dead. He was close enough to reach out, to tear me apart like wet paper. But he didn't. He just looked. Or I think he looked. That nothingness where a face should have been, it pressed against me harder than any stare. And then, as sudden as he'd come, he turned. Steps dragging away, echoing deeper into the labyrinth. When I could finally breathe again, I dropped to my knees. The flashlight clattered, rolling in a lazy arc, the beam sweeping across the wall. That's when I saw the carvings. Not random gouges this time. Symbols. Hundreds of them, etched in frantic patterns. Spirals, jagged lines, crude shapes of eyes and horns. They covered the wall, floor to ceiling, fresh enough that chalky dust crumbled when I touched them, and threaded between them, scratches forming words. English words. He walks. He waits. Don't sleep. My skin crawled, because the dust was still falling from the grooves, as if whoever carved them had just stepped away. Tell me, if you'd found that, would you have kept patrolling? Would you have turned your back on those words? I couldn't. Not after seeing them. I bolted. Not running wild, not breaking Rule 3 outright, but fast enough that my boots splashed through water without me caring who heard. I kept my beam low, watching for every flicker of shadow. every hint of movement. At the stairwell, I slammed my fist into the rusted rail just to feel something solid, something real. My knuckles split on the jagged edge, blood dripping onto the steps. I told myself I'd quit. Right then. Walk away, find something else, anything else. But when I staggered back into the supervisor's office, he didn't even glance at me. Just pushed the sign-out sheet across the desk with a trembling hand. And there, scribbled in black ink beside the date, was a note. Not his handwriting. Don't leave. I didn't sign. I walked out, heart pounding, lungs burning. The night air felt too thin, too light. But even then, outside, beneath the street lamps, I heard it. The faintest clang of armored steps. On pavement. I turned so fast, my neck cracked. The street was empty, just rows of parked cars and sleeping buildings. But in the reflection of a darkened shop window, I saw something pass behind me. Tall, horned, hollow. And then it was gone. I didn't quit. I should have. God knows I should have. But fear does strange things to a man. For 2 whole days, I stayed away from the tunnels. I told myself I was done. My paycheck wasn't worth waking up every night soaked in cold sweat, hearing phantom footsteps pacing in my apartment. But when the supervisor called, his voice flat, like ash, I answered. "You coming in?" he asked. I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself say, yes. That's how the night keeps you. Not with chains, not with threats, with a pull, a weight that sinks into your bones until walking away feels harder than walking back down into the dark. The 4th week is when everything snapped. I'd been assigned to the southern branch, one of the oldest sections. Hardly anyone went down there anymore, not even during maintenance days. The lamps were few, their glow weak and jaundiced. The air carried a stink I can still taste if I think too hard about it, like wet stone mixed with rusted blood. I had just checked the pump gauges when I heard it. The horn. Not faint, not filtered through static, clear, rolling down the tunnel like a command. I froze. My flashlight beam quivered against the wall. Rule 4 burned through my head. Never follow the night's horn. But the sound doesn't give you a choice. It seeps into you. And this time, it wasn't pulling me forward. It was calling from behind me. I turned. The beam caught dust swirling in the air, disturbed by something moving closer. I backed away, heels scraping the stone. And then he stepped into the light. There was no mistaking him now. No imagining, no tricks of shadow. The hollow night. He filled the tunnel, shoulders nearly scraping the walls. His armor clung in pieces, blackened with age. Edges glowing faintly as though heat still lived in them. His helm curved upward into horns, cracked and jagged, and the void beneath it drank the light. The sword dragged beside him, a massive thing that sparked as it kissed the ground. Every sound of it set my teeth on edge. I couldn't move, my body locked, brain shrieking to flee, but legs rooted. He stopped 6 feet away. The silence roared. Then he lowered the blade, pointed it at me. A gesture so human it froze me more than anything else, because it wasn't random. He knew I was there. He was choosing me. I wanted to scream, to beg, but all I could manage was a ragged whisper. "What do you want?" The void face tilted, and from deep inside the helm, a sound bled out. Not words, not breath. A chorus of echoes, all overlapping, like dozens of voices whispering from a cavern too deep to reach. My flashlight flickered, whining, and in that split second of darkness, I felt a rush of air past my cheek, cold and sharp. When the light flared again, he was gone. But the wall behind me, scratched deep, a symbol, fresh, a circle with a line slashed through it. I didn't sleep that day. I didn't even try. I sat in my chair, lights blazing, curtains drawn, replaying it over and over. He could have killed me. He should have. But he didn't. He marked the wall instead. Why? Why let me live? The next night gave me the answer, or the start of one. I was back in the tunnels. Don't ask me why. I can't explain it anymore. Maybe I thought if I followed the rules hard enough, I'd stay safe. Maybe I was already hooked. But halfway through Control, I found something I wasn't supposed to. A door. Heavy iron set into the stone like it had been hidden for years. No markings, no lock, just a seam where the metal met the wall. My map didn't show it. None of the other guards ever mentioned it. I pressed my ear to the cold surface. At first, silence. Then, faint and wet, like breath through a reed. Help! Every muscle in my body seized. The voice was weak, but human. Not the night. A man. I knocked once, a reflex I regret. The reply came instantly. Please, open it. He's here. My throat dried. My hand hovered over the seam. It was impossible. How could someone be alive behind a sealed iron door in tunnels nobody used? And yet, I couldn't turn away. If you were me, I whispered to no one, would you open this door? The voice answered as though it had heard. Yes, please, hurry. I braced my fingers, wedged them into the gap. The metal groaned under my pull. Something inside scraped against the other side, like nails clawing to help. The seam widened, just enough for my flashlight beam to cut through. And that's when I saw the eyes. Not human, not desperate, hollow, white void staring straight into mine. The voice behind the door changed. The same hollow chorus I'd heard under the knight's helm. Hundreds of whispers spilling out at once. He walks. He waits. He chose you. I let go. The seam slammed shut with a clang that rattled my teeth. And from the far end of the tunnel, the horn blew again, louder than ever. The horn shook the tunnel. Dust rained from the ceiling, stinging my eyes. My knees buckled, palms slapping against the damp stone to steady myself. It wasn't just sound. It was pressure, shoving through my bones, vibrating in my teeth. I staggered backward from the sealed door, flashlight beam jumping wildly. I knew the night was coming. I didn't need to see him. The horn was enough. Still, I ran. Rules be damned. Rule 3, Rule 4, I didn't care. My boots slammed against concrete, splashing through puddles, breath tearing out of me in ragged bursts. Every echo came back doubled, trebled, like the whole tunnel was mocking me. The horn sounded again, closer. I rounded a corner so fast, my shoulder smashed into the wall. Pain exploded down my arm, but I didn't stop. My flashlight beam bounced over rusted pipes and dangling wires until it caught something new. Stairs. A narrow service stairwell rising up into dark. I bolted for it, lungs burning, legs quaking. Halfway up, the horn bellowed once more, and this time I heard something under it. Footsteps. Fast, heavy, not dragging, running. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound alone drove fire into my veins. I clawed up the last few steps and slammed against the door at the top. Locked. My fist pounded against the steel, panic choking me. "Open!" I screamed. "Somebody open the—" The horn blasted right behind me. I spun, and there he was. The hollow night filled the stairwell, shoulders scraping the sides. His helm bent low, horns nearly brushing the ceiling. The void of his face drank in my flashlight beam, turning it dim, weak. The sword rose, higher than me, higher than the door. I don't know what saved me. Instinct, desperation, blind luck. I dropped flat to the step just as the blade came down. Steel screamed against steel, slicing clean through the door's bolt. Sparks cascaded. The door swung open from the impact. I scrambled through on my hands and knees, shoving it shut behind me, shoulder braced against the cold metal. Silence. My chest heaved, ribs stabbing with every breath. I waited for the sound of dragging steel, the pressure of the horn. Nothing. Only my own gasps and the ringing in my skull. When I finally dared to move, I realized where I was. A corridor I'd never seen. Cleaner than the tunnels. The walls lined with old tiles, cracked but intact. Electric lamps buzzed above, faint but alive. And at the far end, another guard. He stood stiff, pale in the sick light. His uniform was the same as mine, but filthy, torn. His eyes locked on me with something close to pity. "You shouldn't have opened it," he said. I swallowed, throat raw. Opened what? The door. His voice cracked like dry wood. "That's his way in." I shook my head, confusion burning. "Who are you?" But he didn't answer. He only turned, walked toward the shadows, and melted into them like smoke. I stood there alone, shaking so hard my flashlight rattled against the tiles. The stairwell behind me was quiet, the night gone, or waiting. I didn't know. All I knew was that I wasn't safe anymore. Not even when I followed the rules. Because the night wasn't staying in the tunnels. He was finding doors. That realization crawled under my skin like worms. If he could step out, where did it end? The thought chased me back to the surface, up another set of stairs, through a rusted hatch that spat me into an alley behind the city's old rail yard. I collapsed against the brick wall, lungs clawing for air. The night sky above looked wrong, too open, too empty after so long underground. I thought I'd escaped. I thought I'd left him behind. But as I staggered out onto the street, I saw the first sign I hadn't. Carved into the sidewalk at my feet, the circle with the line. Slashed through it. Fresh. My knees nearly gave. I stumbled back, eyes darting. The street was empty. The lamps hummed. But I knew he'd been there. And then, glass shifted. A storefront window to my left. I turned. In the reflection, over my shoulder, stood the night, perfectly still. Horned helm tilted, void face locked on mine. I spun around. Nothing. Empty street. But when I looked back at the glass, he was closer. I ran. I didn't care who saw. Didn't care what I looked like. I tore down the street until my legs nearly snapped. When I reached my apartment, I slammed the door, locked it, shoved the dresser against it. For the first time since I'd taken the job, I didn't go back the next night, or the night after. I thought if I stayed away, if I broke the cycle, he'd forget me. But he didn't. The steps came anyway. Out in the hall, in the apartment above mine, sometimes in my own kitchen when the lights were off. Always faint, always slow, a reminder. And the worst part? The horn. I heard it in my dreams. I heard it when I was awake. A low, endless call that tugged at my ribs, pulling me toward the door. And one note. I answered. It started with a knock. 3 short raps on my apartment door. Nothing unusual about that, except it was almost 4 in the morning, and nobody in their right mind comes visiting at that hour. I froze on the couch, TV flickering silent blue light across my face. The knock came again, louder. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to bury myself under the blankets and pray. But the horn had been echoing in my head all night, dragging through my sleep, pulling me up gasping. By the time I stood, I already knew who it was, or what it was. I crept to the door, bare feet sticking to the cold linoleum. My hand hovered over the knob. Another knock, slow this time, deliberate, and beneath it, faint, almost polite, open. I backed away. My shoulder hit the wall, my chest hammering like a drum. That wasn't a stranger's voice. It wasn't even a voice at all. It was the same chorus I'd heard under the night's helm. I stayed like that until dawn bled gray through the blinds, when I finally dared to peek. The hallway was empty, but the door had changed, carved into the wood, fresh and raw. That circle with the line slashed through it. He'd marked my home. From then on, there was no escaping. The night wasn't just in the tunnels anymore. He was in the walls, in the spaces between each blink. I tried everything. Salt across the doorframe, candles burning day and night, even prayers whispered into the static of my radio. None of it mattered. Every night, the horn sounded closer, and the steps followed. Sometimes I caught glimpses. In the corner of the bathroom mirror, his helm passing behind me. In the glass of my microwave door, his sword resting against the counter. I'd spin around, light blazing, and the room would be empty. The worst was the bedroom. One night, lying flat on my back, I woke to the mattress sinking, the weight pressing down beside me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My flashlight was on the nightstand, inches from my hand, but I couldn't reach it. The dark pressed tight. Then, breath, cold, damp, right against my ear. A whisper, layered, countless voices at once. Chosen. The mattress lifted. The weight was gone, but the sheets beneath me were wet, like something had climbed out of water and lay there. By then, I knew the job didn't matter anymore. Money didn't matter. He'd chosen me. Whether I showed up to the tunnels or not, I was already his. So when the supervisor called again, voice cracked, telling me another guard had gone missing, I didn't even hesitate. I went back. I think part of me hoped I'd find answers. Maybe if I faced him directly, if I walked into the dark willingly, I'd understand why he hadn't killed me yet, why he wanted me alive. The southern branch felt different that night. Not just old, alive. The walls pulsed with damp. The air reeked like rot. My light wavered, beam barely holding. And then I heard something new. Not the horn, not the dragging blade. A voice. Human. Hello? It was faint, echoing from deeper down the shaft. A man's cry. Desperate. I should have known better. I should have run the other way. But my boots carried me toward it, echoing hollow on the stone. The voice came again, closer now. Please. I can't find the way out. I turned a corner and froze. There he was, a man in a guard uniform, slumped against the wall. His flashlight lay broken at his side, his face pale, eyes wide. He looked up at me, trembling. "You're real," he whispered. "Please, help me up." I dropped to my knees beside him, reaching for his arm. His skin was clammy, cold as stone. And then he smiled. Not a human smile. Too wide. Too many teeth. His lips peeled back until the corners tore. His eyes sank inward, hollow pits glowing faint white. The chorus poured out of his mouth, spilling into the tunnel, shaking the air. He waits. He waits. He waits. I stumbled back, flashlight beam flaring across him. Where a man had been sitting, now only a hollow shape crouched, armor cracking, void face staring. The Hollow Knight. He'd worn the guard like a mask. I bolted, bean jerking wild. The chorus followed me, bouncing from wall to wall. Chosen, chosen, chosen. I didn't stop running until the stairwell appeared. I tore up the steps, lungs tearing raw. At the top, the door opened before I even touched it. The supervisor stood there, eyes sunken, lips trembling. "You saw him," he whispered. I could only nod. "He won't stop now," the man said. His voice cracked into a sob. "He never stops once he chooses." I grabbed his collar, shaking. "What does he want? Why me?" The supervisor only closed his eyes. "Because you listened." And from the stairwell below us, the horn roared. The horn rattled the stairwell. My grip on the supervisor's collar slipped as the sound poured through the concrete like liquid thunder. His eyes shot open, wild with terror, and he shoved me backward through the door. "Run," he screamed. But I couldn't. My body froze, nailed in place by the weight of that sound. The supervisor bolted down the corridor, boots slapping tiles, but I barely saw him. My gaze was locked on the dark mouth of the stairwell. Steps rose from below, not dragging now, climbing, one by one, closer. I staggered back, flashlight trembling. My heart thudded so loud I couldn't hear my own breath. Then he appeared. The Hollow Knight. He filled the stairwell, armor scraping the walls, horns scraping the ceiling. The void beneath his helm sucked the light like it was feeding. His sword rested against the step, point down, ringing softly as he lifted it with both hands. The supervisor's screams echoed faint from deeper down the hall, but they stopped too fast, cut off like a snuffed candle. Now it was just me. The knight stepped onto the landing. The tiles cracked beneath his weight. He raised the blade. I did the only thing my brain offered. I begged. "Please," I whispered, hands shaking in front of me. "Why me? Why are you doing this?" The void face tilted, and then it leaned close. The smell hit me first. Wet stone, rust, and something worse. Something like the sour stench of graves left open too long. His helm lowered until it was inches from mine. And then the voices poured out. Not words at first. Just layers and layers of whispers, too many to understand. A flood. They rushed into my ears, my skull, crawling across my mind until I thought I'd burst. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. They weren't entering through sound. They were inside. And then they formed a sentence. Clear, terrible. "You are hollow too," I screamed. The knight pulled back, sword trembling in his grip, as though it vibrated with the words themselves. He raised it high and then stopped. Something shifted in the air. A pressure, a weight. and for the first time since I'd seen him, the Hollow Knight turned his head away. From the far end of the corridor came light. Not flashlight glow, not lamps, something older, yellower. A lantern's fire, swinging, carried by a figure cloaked in rags. I blinked through the tears burning my eyes. It wasn't another guard. It wasn't anyone I'd ever seen. The figure limped forward, lantern swaying, its face hidden under a hood. The night hissed, a horrible metallic scrape, like armor grinding against itself. The figure lifted the lantern higher. "Back," it croaked, voice dry as dust. And to my disbelief, the Hollow Knight stepped back. Not far, but enough. Enough to lower the sword. The figure shuffled closer, lantern blazing. The knight let out one final horn blast that shook the corridor, and then he vanished. Gone, like smoke sucked down a drain. I collapsed against the wall, gasping, tears streaking my face. The figure stopped in front of me. The lantern's light burned steady, warm. But when it tilted the hood back, my blood ran colder than before. It wasn't a man, not fully. Its skin was stretched thin, gray and papery, eyes clouded and milky. Its lips didn't move when it spoke. The voice seemed to come from the flame itself. "You let him see you," it rasped. "Now he will not rest." I tried to speak, but only a croak came out. What is he?" The figure leaned close, the light searing my vision. "Not alive, not dead, bound. Once a knight, now a hollow thing. He walks until another takes his place." My chest tightened. "Another?" Its milky eyes locked onto mine. "The one he marks, the one who listens. The circle, the line, the whispers." It all clicked in a horrible rush. He hadn't been chasing me to kill me. He'd been chasing me to replace him. I shook my head, choking. No, I won't." The figure straightened, lantern dimming. "It is not choice, it is curse. You have already begun." And before I could ask what that meant, the lantern flickered out. Dark swallowed the hall. When I raised my flashlight again, the figure was gone. Only the cracked tiles and the gouges of the knight's blade remained. I stumbled back to the surface at dawn, half dead from fear. In the daylight, it all felt like fever, a nightmare. But when I peeled off my boots that morning, I saw something carved into the leather of my left sole. The circle, with the line slashed through it, and I swear it hadn't been there the night before. I stopped going to work, didn't answer calls, didn't leave the apartment, except when the walls pressed too close and the whispers made the ceiling drip. I thought maybe if I locked myself away, boarded the door, taped the windows, I could wait it out. But curses don't wait. They grow. The first night, after the lantern figure vanished, I dreamed of the tunnels. Not like memories, worse. I stood in them, barefoot, water seeping between my toes. The horn boomed through my chest. The sword scraped closer. And when I woke, my feet were wet, sheets soaked, dripping onto the floor. The second night, I woke to find dust on my hands. Rock dust, chalky and gray. My nails filled with it, my mouth tasting of stone. I coughed until I spat grit into the sink. By the third night, the dreams didn't end when I opened my eyes. I'd blink and see the knight standing at the foot of the bed, helm tilted, blade resting point down like he was waiting for a command. The mark burned on my palm, faint but spreading like a brand. I thought about ending it, about stepping off the balcony before he could finish me, before he could drag me into the armor. But when I stood there, toes curling over concrete, I heard the horn behind me, close, almost approving. If I died, he'd just choose someone else, someone who didn't deserve it. And I'd still be hollow. So I went back. The tunnels opened like a throat swallowing me. My flashlight felt useless, its beam sucked up by stone. My breath echoed like I wasn't alone, because I wasn't. I could feel him. Every step I took, he was a step behind. Every breath, he was listening. At the southern branch, the air thickened. The whispers rose, endless voices bleeding through the cracks. I followed them deeper, boots dragging, until the chamber opened. I'd never been there before. A cavern wide and high, pillars of broken concrete jutting like ribs. And in the center, the armor, not worn, waiting, a suit, hollow, propped upright as if invisible shoulders filled it. The helm's horns reached high, the blade leaned across its knees, and carved into the ground in a ring around it, that same circle and line over and over, hundreds of them. I understood then, the night was bound to the place, bound until someone stepped into that ring and took the armor for themselves. That was why he stalked, why he whispered. He didn't kill, he chose. The voices screamed as I stepped closer, not out of warning, out of hunger. The armor shifted, the helm tilted up, and from the void inside came that layered word, chosen. My knees buckled. My flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled across the floor, beam spinning. My hands trembled as the mark on my palm burned white hot. I wanted to run. God, I wanted to. But the moment I turned, I felt the weight of the sword at my back. He was there, behind me, the real knight, towering, waiting for me to make the wrong choice. So I did the only thing left. I stepped into the circle. The air dropped 10 degrees. My breath smoked. The whispers surged, filling my head until I thought my skull would split. The armor's gauntlet lifted, slow, creaking, beckoning. I reached out. My fingers touched cold iron. And then, everything. The cavern vanished. I was underwater, lungs burning, black pressure crushing me. Then I was in fire, flames searing skin that didn't blister. Then void, endless void, falling forever. Through it all, the whispers poured, every voice of every guard who had come before me, pleading, begging, screaming, and beneath them, one sound steadier than all. The horn, calling, marking time. When I came back, I was on my knees. My hands were inside the gauntlets, my head heavy with horns, my eyes black mirrors. The Hollow Knight was gone, because I was standing where he had been. The weight of the blade rested in my hands, like it had always belonged there. My chest was empty, no heartbeat, no breath. But I was awake, too awake. I could see every crack in the walls, hear every drip of water miles away, smell the rot of centuries sealed beneath stone. I thought I'd feel power, but all I felt was hunger. Endless, gnawing, hollow hunger. The whispers didn't beg anymore. They obeyed. I don't know how long I stood there. Hours? Days? The tunnels don't measure time like the surface does. But eventually, I heard footsteps above. New ones, cautious, curious. Another guard sent to replace me. And when his light touched the chamber, when his eyes widened at the sight of me, the horn rose unbidden from my chest. 3 long blasts. He froze. I stepped forward. I wanted to scream at him, warn him, tell him to run. But the armor didn't let me. The armor only let me walk, step by step, dragging the blade. Closer. His light shook. He whispered, "Who's there?" The chorus spilled out of my helm, answering for me. "Chosen." And when he turned to flee, I followed. I'll keep following. I'll keep walking. That's the curse. That's what it means to wear this armor. You wait, you hunt, you choose, until someone else listens long enough to take your place. So I'm telling you this, whispering into the dark, not to save myself. I'm already gone. I'm telling you because the night doesn't stay in tunnels forever. He visits, he marks, he knocks. If you hear the horn outside your door tonight, don't open it, because once you do, you'll never stop walking.